Hello, welcome to this episode of our program World Today. Today is the second day of Eid al-Fitr, or the Lesser Bayram. So happy Eid al-Fitr, or happy Lesser Bayram to all Muslims around the globe. Of course, as usual, we will be tackling the headlines of the news agencies online, and as usual, we will be tackling the most important headlines. The one we will start with is from the Gulf today, and Muslims around the world celebrate Eid. Muslims around the world celebrated Eid al-Fitr, religious holiday, on Wednesday, marking the end of Islam's holy month of Ramadan. Like the start of Ramadan, during which believers abstain from eating and drinking during daylight hours, Eid al-Fitr depends on the sight of the moon, and its celebration varies in different countries. The day begins with early morning prayers and then family visits and feasts. For those displaced by fighting in Syria, Iraq, Libya, and other countries, the Eid was yet another festival marked away from home. So I guess with all remembrance, we have to be remembering our brothers, our dear brothers who are not celebrating or marking the Lesser Bayram with us. Hopefully next year or the upcoming year, the upcoming feast would be better for them. I guess to highlight, to give highlight more on our headlines, we have with us over the phone Mr. Dr. Sharif Al-Demirdesh, political analyst. Good evening to you.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you, sir. And we start with you from Ahram Online, and Sisi assures Saudi King of Egypt solidarity in face of terrorism. President Fattah Sisi assured Saudi King Salman in a phone call of Egypt's solidarity with the kingdom in face of terrorism. On Monday, 2 bombings took place near the Prophet's Mosque in Medina, killing at least 4. Yes, we have all heard of this crime, and we have all said that terrorism has no religion, has no ethic, no morals, nothing at all. How did you view such a heinous crime?
Well, I think that this horrible accident, it was meant to damage the image of Islam in front of the whole world. In this sense that if the Muslims are doing that to each other and on their own holy places, what should you expect from them anywhere else, or with people who do not pertain to Islam? This is the message that was meant by this plot. I mean, you have to understand that these people, these terrorists who are committing such crimes, they have no relation with Islam. They are people, okay, maybe they carry the Arab nationality and the Muslim religion on their identity cards, but these people are just instruments. They are used both to serve this purpose of damaging the image of Islam.
Dr. Sharif, if we say that those people are brainwashed, what kind of brainwash do those people have in order to implement such crimes blindly? I mean here that Islam forbids any kind of killing, even to non-believers. What kind of brainwash do they take? How do they brainwash them?
Okay, we have to realize that first there are some prerequisites that should exist. Ignorance, illiteracy, poverty, and religious illiteracy also, illiteracy. It means most of the Muslims, they know about how to practice, rituals, but they don't know anything about their own religion. So this kind of ignorance added to poverty, added to cultural, let's say, drawback or withdrawal of the Muslim world during the last 100 years. It makes them an easy target for people or for, let's say, anyone who wants to use this Muslims to reach a certain purpose against the welfare of Islam, of course. So they are, like say, they are ready to be brainwashed. Personally, I believe, I don't have any proofs for what I'm saying, but I think that there are some kind of drugs. It should be like administrated to such people to become able to commit such errors, yeah, in a sense. Because when you commit something which is completely against human normal sense or common sense, you cannot be in your normal mental attitude. I think that some drugs are used also. No, I'm not saying this is the reason. I'm saying this is a complement.
I guess this is a phenomenon, terrorism, that has to be tackled by the whole world. Moving on to the Daily Star, and car bomb kills 12 Libyan troops allied to Haftar forces in Benghazi, according to military sources. It says a car bomb has killed 12 Libyan troops allied to General Haftar, Khalifa Haftar, commander of forces with the country's eastern government, who have been fighting a campaign against its militants, radicals there. This is according to military sources. This is also another face of terrorism, but face of terrorism in a country, in a whole country. The situation in Libya, how do you view the situation in Libya?
You have now in Libya three sides or three camps. The first camp is the elected parliament, who is endorsed by General Haftar in the east. Then you have now what they call it coalition government. They have their own militants. And then you have what they call it the presidential council in the west, in Tripoli, which he has also his own militants. So you have now in Libya three camps or three factions, whatever. Each of them, he has his agenda, he has his own military militants, and you cannot reach any final settlement in Libya unless these three factions or these three groups should come to a compromise, should come to an understanding, a kind of, common view for the future of Libya. But for the moment being, this, what is happening is, it has been meant by the West, the Westerns, the United States of America, Europe, they are all responsible for what is happening actually in Libya. They, rallied about the democracy and elections, and when they had a legitimate elected parliament, they tried, the European, the Westerns, to create two other bodies to encounter the elected parliament. So this is the situation, unfortunately.
Moving on to Khalij Times, and 2 years after war, Gaza reconstruction lacking. This is according to NGOs, and it says that 2 years after Gaza's last devastating conflict with Israel, rather the Israeli aggression on the Palestinian-occupied lands, right groups vented frustration over the slow pace of reconstruction in the Palestinian territory and lack of war crimes prosecution. That is part of another important issue. Now, the visit of Netanyahu to African states, and that is the news. The visit by Netanyahu to some of the African countries at this particular time, how do you read his visits to the African states? How do you read how the African states received him? And how do you read the whole scene?
Africa has long relationship with Israel. I mean, Israel has been present in Africa since, let's say, the last 30 years. Through technical assistance, through finance, through military assistance, training. We all know that. The aim, of course, if you want, you want to assure the future of Israel, I mean, you need water. There is a problem of water in Israel. I mean, they don't have, okay, that's why they are so brilliant in what we call it desert agriculture, which depends on newly developed means of irrigation, systems of irrigation, which is very advanced, due to the lack of the water. So we know, we do all understand that Israel had her eyes on Ethiopia a long time ago to ensure some arrangements to obtain the Nile water. This issue is Sadat tried to deal with it, and then he pulled back from the project of the terrestrial that was intending to ensure water for Israel. What I'm saying is, as any power, Israel has vested interest in Africa, like the Chinese, like the Europeans, like the Russians, like the Americans. So even the Arab Gulf states, they have their own vested interest in Africa.
So if I may just read the situation here with you, sir. And now, yes, Israel has the problem of water, but it has also the problem of isolation. I mean, the Arab countries have offered Israel peace for land. And peace, that includes every word or every kind of help they can find. Peace for land. Peace for letting Palestinians and the Arab occupied lands. Peace for letting people live. Okay, so now, as we are in not the best shape of the Arab world, and we are involved in many internal wars and facing terrorism, facing lots of troubles, including economic situation, all this, and yet Israel is going to Africa. This is a kind of putting pressures on the Arabs who are still standing on their feet from other places to push them towards what Israel really wants.
Dominance. Israel wanted to dominate the Arab world and the Middle East. This is not a secret. I mean, this is from the Nile to Al-Furat. This is the political map. We know all that. All the Egyptians, since long time we have been taught this in schools. We repeat this slogan, but we did not take it seriously. No, the Israelis, the Hebrews are taking it seriously. From the Nile to Al-Furat, this is their promised land. They have to conquer. They don't want to live in peace. No. This peace is what we call it a transitional period. They don't want peace. They want dominance. They want to conquer this area. Egypt, this is what we call, this is their historical nightmare. They cannot forget what happened to them in the time of Prophet Moses alayhi salam, in the time of the king of Egypt, Pharaoh. They have been persecuted, they have been chased. This is a long history between Egypt and Israel. But today we have to understand that the peace is not the final station for Israel. This is a transitional period only. They want to dominate, to conquer the Arab world and the Middle East. You have to understand this.
Moving on to the World Bulletin and the Turkish World Bulletin, and it says Syrian government violates Eid ceasefire. It says the Syrian government has violated a 3-day ceasefire with strikes and shelling in the country's Aleppo province, according to the United Kingdom based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. War planes dropped bombs at the northern Aleppo area on Wednesday, while government forces fired shells in the nearby town of Anadan. Now, they did not, of course, say whether or not these are the stronghold of Daesh or the stronghold of the terrorist groups in Syria. There was no mention to that, nor if in the territory that are not under the ceasefire agreements. So, how do you view the situation in Syria so far?
Well, you see, the legitimacy, the only legitimacy in Syria is with President Bashar al-Assad. He is defending his country. All the others are mercenaries, terrorists coming from different countries, trying to destitute the system, to divide Syria, and to finish the Syrian army. This is the truth. I mean, whatever Erdogan is saying, Turkey is a country who is following the American agenda. He is not an independent country in the sense of having his own influence on the political scenario of the region. He is just an instrument like Qatar, like others. We call him a functional country or regime. He is executing orders. He is following orders. So what he's saying, you should not give him much attention. He's repeating what his own masters want to say. In any case, Syria. We want peace in Syria? Yes, we want peace in Syria. We want Syria not divided. We want peace, Syria united. We want the legitimate Syrian army to be intact, to be preserved. We want the country, the institutions not to be dismantled. This is that's what we want, what we understand by the word peaceful solution or resolution to the crisis.
Right. Dr. Sharif Al-Demirdash, political analyst, we thank you very much for being with us. I guess that wraps up our episode of the day, The World Today. Many thanks for watching, and again, happy Eid for every Muslim around the globe.